Yeah, I'm ready when you are. You can start, inshallah.
Okay. Yeah,
We can wait. How many we have?
Let's see. 1, 2. We've got a number of people here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
You want to wait a few minutes, or
I think we could. I think it. Oops. Sorry. 1 second. Yeah, I think we could. I think we could. I think it's probably good to start now. I think we've got a good number of people here, and a number of people also joining the live stream on YouTube. So I think we've definitely got a critical mass. So if it's all right with you, we could get started, inshallah. All right. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Welcome, everyone. Inshallah, today will be the first day of our Umur al Aammah sessions with Sheikh Talal. We have a number of people joining as panelists and participants in this course, and then also alhamdulillah, quite a number of people joining the live stream as well. So I welcome everybody and thank everyone for their interest in this program, and for joining us. Alhamdulillah. Just some quick thanks to Sheikh Talal for his willingness to put this together and to lead us in this discussion in this course, and then also thanks to Sheikh Hamza Karamali and the Basira education team for helping to co-organize this. And I think with that, just want to make sure everybody's aware that we're recording. I guess you get that message as you join. We're recording these sessions, but live attendance for the for those those participants who were accepted into this group of the panelists, as well as the other serious students who serious in the sense that you've made the commitment to join the class regularly. anyway, we look forward to seeing you live. For those of you on Zoom with us, Sheikh Talal has just asked that you, whenever possible, please leave your cameras on so that it's not just one person staring at a screen of icons, but actually we're all interacting. So unless there are some other circumstances that make it difficult, please turn your cameras on and join us, inshallah. And I think with that, I hope I haven't left anything out. I think we can get started, and then as we go along today and through early part of this week, inshallah, all of our procedural questions will get answered. I can't guarantee that the kalam questions will get answered, but inshallah they will. So with that, I will pass the mic over to Sheikh Talal. Jazakumullahu khair.
All right. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. أحمد الله الذي لا إله غيره وأصلي وأسلم على من لا نبي بعده سيدنا ونبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. اللهم اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. Welcome to everyone, and thank you for attending today's session. أما بعد فأحييكم بتحية الإسلام. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. First, I would like to begin by extending my gratitude to the organizer of this Dawra, the American Society of Islamic Philosophy and Theology, also known as Dr. Harun Spivak, and also to Basira Education, Sheikh Hamza Karamali, and to all those who have been working behind the scene, assisting them. I also would like to thank Zaytuna College, represented by its president, Sheikh Hamza Yusuf, and those who are helping him and assisting him in running the college, especially Dr. Omar and Dr. Jawad Qureshi, who I think will be joining us. I feel honored and blessed to be in the company of so many of you. Among the participants, there are ustaz, there are shuyukh, there are academics, teachers, researchers, bloggers, scholars, experts, professionals, undergrad and graduate students, and many committed Muslims from all over the globe. If I were to mention a few of them, we thank the folks from Dar al-Huda in India for attending. Also the students and faculty from CMC in the UK, and many madrasas in the UK, graduates of madrasas in the UK, in the US, in South Africa, and many other places. Thanks to all for showing up, as I ask for your patience while you listen to someone like me. It's like we say, I feel your pain. Now, Dr. Harun says he's grateful that this session was organized. But if you know Dr. Harun doesn't let go. Once he puts his mind to something, he's after you, he's after you, he's after you until you agree. So we should all be thanking Dr. Harun. My intent is to respond to the invitation, and if there is a need to say anything, it's just by way of muzakara, by way of review, and by way of opening a dialogue, and by way of having all these uqul, all these brains, and all these committed souls coming together to understand what's going on. That perhaps a word which may not be amazing, it triggers something that is amazing in your minds and in your hearts. And perhaps an expression that might be said in discourse that is lacking may, after contemplating it and thinking about it, may result in something, in an expression that achieves a purpose and express the actual intended meaning. As they say in Arabic, أعتبر نفسي اليوم كالطفيلية على موائد الكرام أو كبائع التمر في ديار هجر. Or like we say in English, I feel like I'm someone trying to sell snow to the Eskimos. So I'm here to benefit from you and for all of us to come together and benefit from each other. All right. Is the screen clear, Sidi?
Yes.
طيب بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. So this course is titled General Ontology al Umur al Aammah. And as you see on the screen, this course is about metaphysics. So it's not about spirituality, and it's not about matters of creed. So issues in creed like kasb, like husn and qabh, like qadar, like the attributes of God, of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, like the existence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala or proving them, are beyond the scope of this course. Also, this course deals with kalam metaphysics, as opposed to philosophy, whether it's peripatetic or ishraqi or akbari or meta-philosophy. Also, it's an intro to kalam metaphysics. So it's not an intermediate or advanced course. So it's just a short course to get an exposure to kalam metaphysics. Now, this presentation is prepared using the aspect ratio of 4:3. I don't know how it looks on your screen, but if you prefer 16:9, let Dr. Harun know, or let someone know, and I'll change the next presentation to be 16:9. I hope that during the session, I will not be like the guy on the left and you're like the guy on the right. Otherwise, we'll be in trouble. Okay, so the outline for this course or for this session, the first, there will be a tamheed, some introductory remarks, and then we'll go over the structure of the 6-week course. And there'll be a short activity to determine our starting point, 10-15 minutes. And Sidi Harun prepared a poll. So each question you're asked to vote on without providing the reasoning, just vote on the question. And after, I think Sidi Harun will share the answers with all of us. Then I'll talk a little bit about Al Umur al Aammah's reader that either you have already in your hand or will be emailed to you shortly by Basira. I've added premises. After looking at all the applicants, I felt that we should add ontological premises to determine, to actually illustrate the starting point or the axioms or the assumptions that we're starting from in ontological, in kalam metaphysics. And then we'll start reading the text, and the first mabhas in the text is on wujud. We'll try to tackle 2 points, which is the self-evidence nature of wujud, and if time permits, we'll go into defining existence and highlights. The idea behind the session that at some point it will be interactive. So I may be raising questions, and hopefully some of you will take the initiative to respond to those questions, and then we can have a short discussion and move on to the next point. There'll also be a Q&A at the end, but the Q&A could also take place after we finish each point. I'd like to begin this session with a hadith in Bukhari. After seeing that we had almost 450 applicants so far, I thought it would be appropriate to start with a hadith from Bukhari on numbers, or on statistics, or on records. There are about 10 to 20 hadiths that are scattered in the books of the Sunnah, in Bukhari and Muslim and Ibn Hibban. There are amazing hadiths that when you look at them, they are mind-blowing. We won't go over this hadith in detail, but there is one statement that we'll spend maybe 15, 20 seconds on it. This is on the authority of Huzaifa ibn al-Yaman radiyallahu anhu. He says, قال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم. This happened in Medina, so after immigration, after Hijrah. قال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم اكتبوا لي من تلفظ بالإسلام من الناس. The Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم instructed us, write down for me the names of all those who have professed to be Muslims. Huzaifa continued. He says, فكتبنا له 1500 رجل. We wrote down 1500 names. And then we wondered, with a number like that, like 1500 names, that's a lot. At the time of Hijrah, maybe the population of Medina was 5,000 to 10,000 people. That's it. So having 1500 Muslims, he said, with a number like that, we are 1500 strong. Would we ever be afraid? فَقُلْنَا نُخَافُ. I think there's a Dhamma on the noon. In the online edition, they put a Fatha, so somebody needs to check, but probably it's a Dhamma. فَقُلْنَا نُخَافُ وَنَحْنُ 1500. And then Hudayfa continued. What a surprise. Later on, no doubt, we witnessed ourselves being afflicted with trials to the point that one would have to offer the prayer alone in fear. This is prior to Fatah Makkah. Some of these things where they have to offer the prayer alone in fear also happened after Fatah Makkah, or after the passing away of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The shahid here is uktubu li, write down for me. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, being the leader of the Ummah, instructed Huzaifa and those around him. He said, uktubu li. He did not say, oh, by the way, Huzaifa, how many do you think we are? Can you give me a rough estimate? He did not say that. No, he said, uktubu li, put it in writing. And not only that, he wants the names. He wants the names. And uktubu li, it seems it's not just one person. It seems there's a committee assigned to do this. As you know, the Prophet ﷺ had about 48, up to 48 secretaries, each one doing something. So there seems to be a group of people assigned to do certain things. And Huzaifa is Aminu Sirri Rasulillah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, as we all know. So, in that spirit, I tried to read each and every applicant to see where people are coming from and what their interests are. and what drew them to the course, what is it they'd like to get out of the course, what kind of issues they're dealing with today in their research or in their studies. And it seems the 400 people they come from 6 major regions. The majority comes from the Americas, North and South Americas. There are probably a few from South America. The majority are from North America. And next one is Europe. And Europe includes the UK, Germany, the Czech Republic, France, the Netherlands. And I put Turkey with Europe and Turkey. Then the subcontinent. We had many people from the subcontinent, from India, from Pakistan, from Bangladesh, and from Mauritius. In the Far East, there are about 5 countries represented. We have participants from Malaysia, from South Korea, from Brunei, from Singapore, and Indonesia. As for AMEA, i.e. Africa, Middle East, and the rest of Asia, we have people from South Africa, Nigeria, Egypt, Morocco, United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Iran, and Azerbaijan. So welcome to all of you, and we really feel humbled by the response. Sidi Haroun and myself and Sheikh Hamza thought maybe only 30 to 50 people would be interested in something like this, but it turned out that the response is much more. As for the participants' background in terms of knowledge, many have gone through madrasa curriculum, and many are familiar with names like Tahawi, Sanusi, Laqani, Dardir. Many have gone through their creedal theology curriculum. Some have studied Usul al-Din by Bazdawi, or Al-Bidaya by Sabuni, or Ghazali's Iqtisad. And many of you have gotten through Sharh al-Aqaid by Taftazani on the Nasafi Creed. Once you get to Sharh al-Aqaid, it's a totally different world. And you start wondering, what am I missing? This actually looks different than Tahawiyya. The discussions are more deep. And if you go to the Hawashi, they're discussing all kinds of issues, and it's a conversation. They're having a conversation. Men of wisdom, giants, are having conversation around this book for over 500 to 600 years. Some of you also have gone through the philosophy curriculum, with the majority being exposed to Ibn Sina, the peripatetic tradition, Sinawi. And some are familiar with the Ishraqi tradition, and some are familiar with Al-Hikmatul Muta'ali. In this course, we will not touch Ishraqi or Hikmah Muta'aliya. However, only 10% or less of the participants mentioned their background in terms of other related sciences, like grammar, logic, usul, balagha, and adab al-bahth wal-munazara, and wada', ilm al-wada'. So let me reiterate the scope of this course, what we will do in this course and what we will not do. So this course, we will examine kalam, specifically mature kalam theology, specifically post-classical kalam metaphysics, not the whole theology, but only kalam metaphysics, post-Razi, or post-Amidi, or post-Ghazali. in conversation with the peripatetic tradition, and any Mu'tazili-based Kalam tradition. Any Mu'tazili-based, not just the Mu'tazila, but any group who have adopted the Mu'tazili approach or Mu'tazili-based principles, like Zaydiyya, like Ibadiyya, like the Shia Isna Ashariya, who have taken some of the Mu'tazili principles and refined them and made them stronger, and incorporated some elements of Hikmah Masha'iyya and some elements of Ishraqi later on. So if I were to go earlier, for those who are, for the followers of the Ishraqi and meta philosophy tradition, they consider themselves to be the latest and greatest upgrade to Ibn Sina. So if Ibn Sina is version 1.0, Ishraqi is version 2.0, and Hikmah Muta'aliya is version 3.0. It's like iOS 16. We are the latest and greatest upgrade to Islamic philosophy. So in this course, we are in conversation with Al-Hikmatul Masha'iyya, the peripatetic tradition, represented by version 1.0, Ibn Sina and those that came after Ibn Sina. As for Kalam, it's version 1.x, the post-classical version of Kalam. And for the Mu'tazila is any version, whether it's early or late. And the Mu'tazili-based Kalam, any version from the 2nd century to the 8th century, the ulama were in conversation with those principles or ideas that are based on Mu'tazili-based Kalam. So just to reiterate, as for Hikmatul Ishraq, or the Akbarian Hikmah, or Al-Hikmatul Muta'aliya, they're beyond the scope of this course. We may, from time to time, mention 1 or 2 statements from Hikmatul Ishraq, and maybe 1 or 2 statements from Hikmah Muta'aliya, but that's the extent we will go to. Let me move on to the learning outcomes. I'm not sure if you got the simplified learning outcomes yet or not. But initially, I put down 3 learning outcomes. Then after we saw the participants, I removed 1 of them and replaced it with a new one. So we have 2 learning outcomes that you will see in the syllabus. There was a 3rd one that we crossed, and we've added this one here. And this one is not easy. When we go over Mawaqif or other books, we find the students struggling with this. The idea of identifying which framework you're in. And sometimes you read the statement or you read a passage, and in the passage, it's going through different frameworks at the same time. And you may forget yourself and apply the set of principles from one framework onto another. And this mixing and confusion is not easy to detect. Even major scholars sometimes fall into this, what they call khalt. Sometimes they say هذا من باب خلط المفهوم بالمصداق. Or sometimes they say هذا من باب خلط هل البسيطة بهل المركبة. Or sometimes they say, and there are so many ways to describe the mixing and confusion that even top-notch scholars may fall into. So as we read Tahzib al-Kalam, or as we read any book, we have to remain alert, as sometimes in one statement, as we shall see in the first statement that we will read today, there will be multiple frameworks at work. And each framework or each paradigm even may have their own set of principles. So, as for structure of the course, there will be 6 live sessions and 3 to 4 application sessions. The application sessions will be led by Sheikh Hamza Karamali, Dr. Haroon, and possibly Dr. Jawad Qureshi may lead one of them, inshallah. So yeah, the structure of the course, we're going to have 6 sessions, 3 sessions on existence, on wujud, 2 on quiddity. Initially, we had 8 sessions, but because we have to finish in early November, we combined the last 3 sessions into one: contingency, impossibility and necessity, unity and multiplicity, i.e. the one and many, and cause and effect. As for the application sessions, I'm suggesting that the application sessions could have 2 components. One component is a review component, because the ideas and concepts in metaphysics, in Kalam metaphysics or Islamic philosophy metaphysics, these ideas need to be looked at once, twice, 3 times, 10 times, 20 times, 100 times. So the review component is to consolidate everyone in the application session and to make sure that we're all on the same page. And one participant may say, I understood it in this way, and someone will say, no, I understood it in that way. The second component could be a discussion component, and you can take it in any direction you want. My suggestion is to limit it within the scope of this course, but it's up to you. So it could be anywhere on peripatetic ontology or metaphysics, on Mu'tazili-based ontology or metaphysics, on Aristotle, on Kant, on Russell's. You can take it in any direction. I'm expecting it to be, the majority will be in English, plus some Arabic, because most technical terms are in Arabic. As for the main session, for the live sessions, initially we planned it to be 60% Arabic, 40% English, but with the number of applicants, we'll try to have more English, and Justin, Maulana Justin, will be helping me. If I find myself switching to Arabic, Maulana Justin will, at the end of each point, will give us a recap in English, inshallah. So I'd like to begin also with an activity. Prepared about 15 questions. This activity is to help us determine the obstacles that we have to overcome, our own obstacles. So the idea behind the activity is that there will be a set of questions, and we're asking you to vote on it. As for why you chose that answer versus the other, we can discuss that later. So the activity is to allow us to determine our starting point. Each one of us have a different starting point, and we owe it to us to look at our starting point and see if we missed something. So Sidi Harun prepared a poll, and how do you propose to do it, Sidi Harun?
I can launch it now, and I think we'll see all of the questions at once, but maybe you could talk us through each screen.
Okay.
So we can, yeah, I'll launch
So
now.
the first question is, all right, let me put this somewhere.
Does everybody see the poll?
Yes.
Okay. The first question is on wujud, existence. And its existence in relation to quiddity. So it's a multi-choice question, and you can have 3 answers if you want. So the question is, does it or does it not? Does existence have a quiddity or does it not? هل له ماهية أو لا ماهية له? It would be great if you can choose one of the 2 answers. Or you can choose a third answer, which is to abstain. But the idea is to think about this question for 5 seconds, 10 seconds, and then vote on it. And if you find yourself unable to decide, then you can abstain.
I forgot to add an abstain option. I'm sorry. So
Okay, that's fine then. Just choose one. الوجود له ماهية أو لا ماهية له. This is existence in relation to quiddity. Does it or does it not?
everybody can see the poll and is able to click their answers on that, right?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so some of you can.
You can click on the poll, right?
Yeah. Okay. Looks like some people are able to.
I think we have to click on all the answers before hitting submit.
Okay. Okay.
I see.
So I guess we'll see the results, unfortunately, after the fact.
Okay.
Should we? Is that okay? So yeah, people could put their answers to the poll as opposed to in the chat. You should be able to see a pop-up window that says, I'm assuming it's a pop-up window that says polls and quizzes, I think.
CD, can you also translate some of the words? Because some of the questions in English are a little bit ambiguous.
All right. What do you mean?
So, for example, in question 3, does existence have a like? Well, what is the, what do you mean by that?
We'll go slide by slide on that.
Go slide by slide, yeah. So
just
as to the first question, is clear? The first question? Those who can't vote on the poll maybe can show their hands.
So for the poll, if for the participants, they can see there's a pop-up window at the very bottom of the screen. That'll pop up. It says mute, stop video, participants, then polls. You can click on the poll and it should pop up.
Polls, quizzes. Okay, I see beside share screen. Can we move on to the next question? So the next question is existence in relation to other intelligibles. So الوجود بالإضافة إلى غيره من المعقولات. And we have here 3 possibilities. So either wujud has an opposite, or wujud has a misl. So the technical term would be misl, misliya, i.e. equal or like. And the third possibility, it's dissimilar, مخالف. So the first question is, هل الوجود له ضد أو لا ضد له? Does it have an opposite or does it not? هل الوجود له مثل أو لا مثل له? There is nothing like unto him. هل الوجود مخالف للمعقولات أو ليس مخالفا للمعقولات؟ By the end of the course, we should be able to answer this. But for now, we just want to see where we are. Because we know the word wujud, we know the word existence, but how much have we thought about it? All right. Let me know when I can move to the next question. I'll move to
Sorry.
the next.
Sorry, just so since I'm in the host view, I can't see what a participant's view looks like. Is maybe Justin, can you maybe clearly describe for us where people can find the poll? It seems like it's popped up for some people, but not for others.
Okay, yes. So if you move like your mouse such that you can see a bottom bar at the very bottom of the screen, you'll see on the left-hand side, mute, stop video, participants, and then next side is polls. And if you click on that button, there should be an activity that should pop up.
Yeah, there's no pop-up that says polls next to mine. It just says participants, chat, share screen, record, reactions, and that's all I have.
If you can't see the polls, just show your hands, and I'm sure Mr. Harun, Sidi Harun will take a note of that.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. I assumed everybody would have this, be able to see the same thing. It might be just which version of Zoom people are
Right.
using.
Then I'll continue. Can we switch then to show of hands instead of clicking on the poll? Would that work?
We can try. It's just that most people do not have their screens on. So if everybody can put their screens on, we could do that, and then I could sort of keep track of what people have chosen.
All right. Next question is, so this is a rule. And the question is, there will be 4 principles listed below. And to which of the 4 principles the following rule is related the most? ثبوت الشيء لنفسه ضروري وسلبه عنه مستحيل. The subsistence of some x in itself is necessary, and the negation of x from itself is impossible. Is this rule related to مبدأ الهوية, the identity principle, مبدأ الجوهرية, the substantial principle, مبدأ التناقض, the principle of non-contradiction, or مبدأ الذاتي لا يعلل, the sufficient cause principle, or as we say in technical terms, ما بالعرض يعود إلى ما بالذات وما بالذات لا يعلل. I'll move on to the next question. قاعدة الفرعية, the rule of subordination. So we have 2 things, x and y. ثبوت شيء لشيء فرع ماذا? The subsistence of some quality x in a thing y is subordinate to what? Is it subordinate to both x and y? Or is it subordinate to y only? So ثبوت شيء لشيء فرع ثبوت المثبت له لا الثابت, or ثبوت شيء لشيء فرع ثبوت المثبت له والثابت, both المثبت له والثابت. The subsistence of some quality x and a thing y is subordinate only to y subsistence, not to x? Or is it subordinate to Y subsistence as well as to the subsistence of X posited to it. So this rule also comes in usul. Question number 7. المشترك اللفظي. So equivocal word. Is it a word that is يتعدد معناه بتعدد الوضعي أو يتعدد معناه فقط مطلقا سواء تعدد الوضع أو لا? So an equivocal word, is it a word that designates a variety of meanings due to a variety of instances of word coinage? وضع. Or is it a word that designates a variety of meanings, period, regardless of word coinage? What are your thoughts? So let's wait 10 seconds before we move on to the next question. If you can't vote on it now, maybe you can write your answers on a piece of paper and type it and email it to Sidi Harun or put it in the chat somewhere. Next question. This question is on al-haml, predication. We have 4 possibilities. I'll give you a hint. It's not number 4. It's one of the first 3. So هل الحمل ذهني أو خارجي أو ذهني وخارجي أو لا ذهني ولا خارجي? Is predication mental, extramental, both, or neither? Next question. I think it will be good to have answers to the first 8 questions, because the questions after that, if we have never encountered them or that's not our area of interest, maybe we haven't seen them yet. Next question is في النسب والإضافات. And this question relates to a discussion that Taftazani had in Al-Mutawwal. Surprisingly, a discussion on existence took place in a book of Balagha, not in a book of Kalam. In Sharh al-Maqasid, he maybe alludes to it, talk about it briefly, but a full discussion happened to take place in his book Al-Mutawwal. And Sialkoti, in his Hashiyah on Al-Mutawwal, expanded on this and discussed it from various angles. And this same discussion was taken later on by the meta-philosophers and even the later period of the Mashai philosophers, and coined a term for it. There is now a technical term for this discussion. And it's about al-nisab wal-idafat. The question is about هل الخارج ظرف لنفس النسبة, that the extramental world is where the nisbah itself occurs, or هل الخارج ظرف لوجود النسبة, the extramental world is where the existence of the nisbah occurs. We've struggled with the translation of these two statements, but I hope this at least gets the point across. Now, if you want to read Russell's or Kant's, you cannot afford to be ignorant of this discussion. It's not the only discussion you need, but it's a discussion that may prove helpful when you read Kant or Russell's on denoting or on the theory of descriptions. So people who come from the analytical philosophy world. Next question. أقسام الوجود. أقسام الوجود, we either have one قسم or two or three أقسام. The divisions of wujud, subdivisions of wujud, or the types of wujud, or the kinds of wujud, or divisions of wujud. In principle, the Kalam theologians, as well as the Islamic philosophers, in principle, whether they belong to peripatetic, Ishraqi, Hikmah Muta'aliya, any group of mutakallimun, whether they're Mu'tazilis or Zaydis or Sunnis or Shi'is, or in principle, they've agreed on the division of wujud, on the numbers of division of wujud. What is that number? You can always answer one. That's the safest. But is it one or two or three? هل هناك ثلاثة أقسام للوجود أو اثنان أو واحد؟ The next question is, let's look at Kant. If one is familiar with the ontology of Kant, let's try to, we need to understand Kant in his own framework, but let's also try to map what he says onto our framework. Where will it fit? And do we see gaps in his thinking or do we not? According to Kant, how many أقسام للوجود do you think there is? How many wujud there is? 1, 2, 3? Five seconds, and we'll move on to the next question. This is also trying to map positions of Kant onto our framework. So according to Kant, the term existence and God exists. How would Kant look at this? How would he classify it? If Kant were to hear God exists, what does existence refer to him? تصنيف الوجود عند كانت هل هو محمولي رابطي or رابط? So one is predicative, one is copulative, and the third one is incopulative, i.e. it's just dependent, it's not independent. But sometimes they call it وجود حرفي in some terminology. This third terminology is actually what Taftazani referred to in نسب and إضافات earlier, and then a term was coined for it later on by maybe Mir Damad or someone like him. 5 seconds, and we'll move on to the next question. According to Kant, existence in God exists. Is it حقيقي? Is it real? Is it literal? Or is it majazi, just a figure of speech, allegorical? Or is it neither? Hint, it cannot be neither. It's one of the first two. How do you think Kant would look at existence and God exists? Okay. This is the activity. Yes.
Sorry, Sheikh, if sorry with you. You sent me a draft of this as a PDF of these questions. Do you mind if I put that in the chat so people can look over them and maybe write out all their answers in case they missed the first few as we were trying to figure out the
sure.
poll? Okay.
Yeah, let's do that. Yeah, that'd be great.
So I've also added, wrote in some numbers so that they correspond to those who did use the poll.
Yeah, because we modified the numbers now. Let me know when you're done.
Okay, I've just forwarded the PDF to the group. So if you missed any of the questions and want to quickly take a look at them. And it looks like 10 people have been able to use the poll. Yeah.
Well, what are the results so far?
Well, I can end the poll so far and just share what we have.
Okay.
50% represented.
Oh, you ended? Okay.
Share results. Okay, can you see the results thus far?
Mm. Can this be like put in a document and sent to me, maybe? Or
Yeah, I'll work on that.
Screenshot or take a screenshot.
Oh, I see. Yeah, I'll see what I can do. I'll have to do it. in a
I can
couple of
I
different-
can take a screenshot, yeah, later on. Try.
That's right. I'll have to, it'll take a few.
Okay. Apologies, the first session today happened to be mostly tamheed and preliminary introductory remarks. And inshallah, it's brief, regardless of how long it will take us to go through it. So let's move on to Umur al Aammah reader. This is a reader that you will be getting in your email if you haven't gotten it already. Has it been sent out yet, Sidi Harun?
I don't think it was included in the emails that went out, but with your permission, I can also put it, I can forward it here now and in the chat.
Yeah, the latest one that we sent. Yeah.
Okay, I'll send that as.
Yeah, I think Sheikh Hamza Karamali will send the reader as well as the mini syllabus.
Yeah.
And also the portion from the commentary on Tahzib al-Kalam related to Umur al Aammah will also be sent. So the reader will look something like this. There's Al Umur al Aammah, and there are two columns. One column belonging to Taftazani, died in 792. And in this column, we retyped Tahzib al-Kalam, the metaphysics section, Umur al Aammah section. And on the left, on the right, we have E.G., who died in 756. And we retyped Jawahir al-Kalam. His Jawahir al-Kalam, which is an abridgment of his Mawaqif. So, sorry. The book that we will be reading is called Tahzib al-Kalam by Imam Taftazani. As you know, Imam Taftazani started writing at the age of 16, 17. He wrote Tasrif al-Azzi when he was very young. He wrote Al-Mutawwal when he was also very young. He started writing it at the age of 20 and finished it in 6 years or 8 years. One of the most important books in Balagha and also in Kalam, especially if one wants to engage in modern philosophy. One needs to know Kalam as well as philosophy, as well as Balagha, as well as Usul. Those four go hand in hand. And then Taftazani wrote Sharh al-Aqaid, maybe by the age of 38 or 48, most likely 38. And wrote Maqasid toward the end of his life, and Sharh al-Maqasid when he was over 70 years old. After writing Sharh al-Maqasid, he made an abridgment of Sharh al-Maqasid into Tahzib al-Kalam, Tahzib al-Mantiq wal-Kalam. Tahzib al-Mantiq took direction on its own with the commentary of Mullah Abdullah al-Yazdi and Khabisi and Dawani and others. Tahzib al-Kalam became very popular amongst the ulama of Kurdistan, as well as Egypt, as well as few other places. The commentary we will be referring to when we read, inshallah, this week or next week, is a commentary made by Sheikh Abdul Qadir al-Sanandaji al-Kurdistani. Any book in Kalam in the post-classical period always have 6 sections. And these sections go from epistemology to ontology to accidents, substances, and then ilahiyat and samayat. Ontology is called ilahiyat bil-ma'na al-a'am. Ilahiyat in the widest sense of the word. While section 5 and 6 are called ilahiyat bil-ma'na al-akhas. Ilahiyat in the most specific sense of the word. This arrangement, this order, started with Saifuddin al-Amidi. Saifuddin al-Amidi in his Abkar and other books, he adopted this order. This order became prevalent after him. Razi had a similar order prior to him. But E.G. in his Mawaqif relies on Mabahis Mashriqiyya of Razi and Abkar al-Afkar of Amidi and a couple of other books. So first we talk about epistemology, then we move on to ontology, then we move on to accidents, substances, ilahiyat. If you read Mawaqif, E.G. looks at the divisions of beings. And beings are either God or Jawhar or Arab. Either Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, his attributes and his acts, or the other beings in existence, i.e. Zawat and Sifat. Zawat, entities and their attributes, or substances and accidents. So it's not surprising to see a section assigned to each one of them. One section on accidents, one section on substances, one section on ilahiyat and samayat. Because these are the three divisions of beings. Prior to that, general ontology is like al-muqaddimat in usul al-fiqh. These are the general principles governing existence or governing objects of knowledge. Because the ulama of kalam, they don't start with existence, they start with ma'loom. Al-ma'loom, not al-mawjood. So a bit wider than ma'loom. And there's an implicit meaning here when they classify it in this way, and we're starting from al-ma'loom. It's implied that al-ma'loom is a mawjood. That al-ma'loomu yudrak. Al-ma'loom can be known. Al-ma'loom can be perceived. So we have to start from our epistemology. What is knowledge? Is it possible to know something? Is there something out there? Can it be known? Do we have access to it? What is the nature of knowledge? Imkanul ma'rifa. Can it be known? To what extent it can be known? And then this knowledge that we get and accumulate and structure, how reliable is it? How much can I rely on this knowledge? Is it yaqini? Is it not yaqini? To what extent I can rely on this knowledge? And if you read on the first page of your reader, we put تعريف علم الكلام and موضوع علم الكلام. So the موضوع of علم الكلام, as they say, المعلوم. المعلوم. At the time of Ghazali, it was الموجود. And before Ghazali, it was just Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, his attributes and his acts. المعلوم. So in ontology, E.G. and Taftazani and most scholars start with al-ma'lum, the objects of knowledge, or the knowable, or those things that in their disposition, they can be known. Why? To show also that our epistemology is not divorced from our ontology. And our ontology is not divorced from our epistemology. In epistemology, we examine knowledge, and we move on to ontology, and the transition is smooth. And the ma'loom can be known, and can be perceived, and can be studied. So we have three more sections: accidents, substances, and ilahiyat. What we're trying to do in this course is to make an attempt to understand Tahdhib al-Kalam, or any book one might read, using the framework of the author himself. We don't want to impose our own frameworks or our own understanding of what Kalam should be on the author. We would like to understand al-hikmah al-masha'iyya as per their framework. We want to understand Kalam metaphysics as per their framework. And then later on, if we don't like their framework, we can refine it, we can change it. That's up to you. We want to uncover the intent of the author. So Al-Umur al Aammah begins with في المعلوم. In تهذيب الكلام, he omitted المعلوم. He talked about it in المقاصد, and E.G. talked about it in المواقف. But in تهذيب الكلام, he talked about it when he talked about الحال, to save space. نصير الدين الطوسي in his تجريد talked about it when he talked about الكيفيات النفسانية. He talked about epistemology there in تجريد. So الأمور العامة consists of 5 chapters: existence, quiddity, necessity, unity, and cause. في الوجود والعدم، في الماهية والتعين، في الوجوب والإمكان والامتناع. And the first one is prelude, the object of knowledge. في المعلوم, that whose disposition is to be known. ما من شأنه أن يعلم. So anything that can be known, that can be used to prove the aqaid or to support the aqaid, is part of the subject matter of ilm al-kalam. Whether it's chemistry or physics or medicine or anything. Anything that can be known. Anything that can be studied. But only from the perspective that it serves our purpose. Because in this science, we're not interested in just anything. We're interested in the aqaid at the end. So the arrangement of major texts usually goes, as we mentioned, like this: mawaqif, maqasid, tajreed, even though tajreed put it later, but the intent is there. Tahzeeb, even though he put it later, the intent is there. You can think of this as an intellectual journey. That's how E.G. looked at it. It's an intellectual journey. So Imam E.G. regarded ilm al-kalam with all its complexity as a kind of intellectual journey. It's like you're going on a train and going to your destination. So along these journeys, along this journey, there are several stations, what he calls mawaqif, stations, or positions, or stand. Where one stops and has to make some observations. So we have mawaqif, then we have marasid, and then we have maqasid. So you may stop at a station and make observations, look around you, maybe have a dinner, have steak. Now, of course, any observation, especially those observations made by the mind, will have to look at objects of observation. تهذيب الكلام, مقاصد, مواقف, they all follow the same approach. We need to pause and observe, examine, debate, articulate, move on to the next station. So let's keep looking at the arrangement of major texts. any text we study, we go over, the author has a goal in mind. So any text, you can look at the structure of any text in the following manner. And it's a simple, it's a first order approximation. I mean, it can be made more involved, but any text will have two things. In the text, you'll have something مقصود بالذات and مقصود بالعرض. In any text, you have something that is essential to the text. If you were to remove it from the text would lose its meaning. So in a book of Aqaid, for example, if you were to remove ilahiyat, what's the value of that book? The book lost its meaning. And in the maqsood bizat, there are also two types, two divisions. Things that are foundational, they're essential, but they're also foundational. And in our chart here, they're number 5 and 6, the ilahiyat and sam'iyat. The whole book is written for this purpose. How about 1 to 4? Epistemology, ontology, accident, substance. They're auxiliaries. They're there serving the foundational. The epistemology, ontology, accidents, and substances are khadimun, مساعد, مؤازر, مساند, معاضد. They're there to serve the foundation. So it's foundational for us, or for the authors, are 5 and 6. What about 1 to 4? They're there to serve the foundational. In addition, we will see something peripherals or accidental. And if those things were to be removed from the text would still retain its value and its meaning and its purpose. But there is added value in adding those additional topics. And you see this in any book, throughout the book. Throughout each and every section, there could be something that could be omitted, but it's there serving an added value purpose, not the essential purpose. So as we read through the book, try to keep that in mind. It's like when you write a thesis, the whole thesis can be condensed into 30 pages. Everything else is مقصود بالعرض, just to fill in the pages. And then there could be value in the first chapter and other chapters. But the whole thesis can be summarized maybe in 25 pages, 30 pages. There were PhDs written that are only 25 pages. And I think there was a PhD written that's only 1 page. It's مقصود بالذات, i.e. essential and foundational. Where are we? Yeah. So going back to Umur al Aammah, we have these 5 chapters. Today we'll attempt to begin talking about wujud and Adam. So as I said, we will be reading Tahzib al-Kalam from Taftazani, and 95% of what we cover will be from Tahzib al-Kalam, will be from this book, Tahzib al-Kalam. And the rest, we may look at some statements from E.G. in Jawahir al-Kalam that are good to look at, and they complement what we want to read. And we may also take a look at 1 or 2 statements from Tajreed. But the majority will be from Tahdhib al-Kalam. We'll also take a look at 1 statement related to An-Nisab wal-Idafat from Al-Mutawwal and the Hashiyah of Siyal-Koti on it, especially for those who want to read Kant or Russell's or people like them. When we read تفتزاني's تهذيب الكلام, we will consult one commentary is تقريب المرام في شرح تهذيب الكلام by الشيخ عبد القادر السنندجي الكردستاني. Okay. So now let's talk about premises. Let's first take a look at the definition of ontology or metaphysics or Umur al Aammah in particular. So this is the text that we will be reading, and it's taken from the commentary of Sanandaji on Taftazani. Al-Umur al Aammah, general ontology or general matters, or general principles governing ma'lumat and governing existence, the properties, or sometimes called metaphysics in the most general sense, al-ilahiyat bil-ma'na al-a'am. Why is it called ilahiyat bil-ma'na al-a'am? Because it deals with al-wajib and al-mumkin. While ilahiyat bil-ma'na al-akhas, metaphysics in the most specific sense, only deals with al-wajib. So it's more specific than ilahiyat bil-ma'na al-a'am. So by Umur Aammah, we mean general matters that consist of those items which do not belong to any one division from among the divisions of beings. The divisions of beings are the divine, the substance, and the accident. The substance is that which subsists on its own. ماهية إذا وجدت لا في موضوع, as the philosophers say. Or القائم بنفسه بذاته, as the متكلمون say. And the accident is ماهية إذا وجدت في موضوع, as the philosophers say. Or قائم بغيره, as متكلمون say. So we have the divine, substance, accidents. Divine, ذات and صفات. Divine, that which subsists on its own, like jawahir and substances, and that which subsists in something else, like arad or accidents. And by the divisions of being, the mutakallimun only refer to these three: the necessary being, the substance, and the accident. So let me see if I can switch to my wonderful iPad. So the Umur Aammah, the general ontology or general matters, so these are Umur Aammah Shamila, as the Sheikh says here. الشاملة, let's read and maybe CD Justin can summarize for us. الباب الثاني في الأمور العامة الشاملة للموجودات بأسرها من الواجب والجوهر والعرض. كالوجود والوحدة، فإن كل موجود وإن كان كثيرا له وحدة ما، باعتبار أو لأكثر الموجودات كالإمكان الخاص والحدوث والوجوب بالغير والكثرة والمعلولية. وإنما قدم الأمور العامة على البواقي لأنها كالمبادئ لها، وقدم البحث عن الوجود لشرفه، فقال تصور الوجود ضروريا. Sidi Justin.
So the Sheikh, rahimahullah, says, so he's speaking about the Umur al Aammah. So he says the general matters encompass all existence, bi asriha. So I mean all of the existence, all mawjudat. And what he means by existence, he means or existence, mawjudat, he means the necessary, the wajib. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, substances, and then the accident. And then the general matters that he refers to here, he gives two examples like existence and unity. So wujud and wahda. Then he says that indeed every existent, so every mawjud, even it's considered to be many or composite, has a sort of unity from one perspective. Then he also says, he retracts a bit. He says every existent or most existents have a perspective of unity. And then he gives some examples, and that will be the example of special contingency, so imkan al-khas, emergence, huduth, dependent necessity, or the necessity due to another being, so wujud bil ghayr, or plurality, this kathra, and or being in effect, and then ma'luliyah. And then the author here, he has advanced, he says that Sanandaji says that his Taftazani has advanced the discussion of general ontology, so Umur al Aammah, over the remaining discussions, because they're like first principles for the discussions which he's going to build up through the rest of the text. So going from the Arad to the Jawahir and so on. And he says as well, Taftazani, he advanced the discussion on existence over the other discussions because it has an elevated status.
All right, Jazakumullahu khairan. So we can put what Sanandaji commented on in a chart. So we have al-umur al-amma, these are shamila. They encompass everything, encompass all beings. They encompass all divisions of beings. So matters considered to be general can therefore cover all beings or some of the beings, i.e. at least two of them. If you only have three beings under consideration, so al-umur al-amma covers either all three or at least two of the three, but not one, unless there is a specific reason to cover umur that belongs to one of the three only. So those which can cover, so al-umur al-amma ala al-itlaq, let's say ala al-itlaq. So either covering all of them or most of them. So what covers all of them? Those which can cover all three divisions are like number one, existence, and number two, wahda, because all of them exist. All of them exist, and all of them can be considered as one from one angle, one perspective. So they have first existence, second unity. For beings, though multiple, has unity. We say, for example, this is one army, one company, one classroom, but there are many. Secondly, the matters that govern most of them are four. And these are الإمكان الخاص, which is a specific possibility. Al-Hudus, which is origination. Al-Kasra, multiplicity. It only covers Al-Mumkin. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not Kasir. And Al-Ma'luliyya, i.e. being caused, i.e. necessity by virtue of another, of the other. Wujub bil-ghayr, for example. Or it's covering the opposite, the counterpart. Like when we cover wujud, we also want to cover adam, non-existence. When we cover necessity, we also cover imtina, impossibility. Impossibility does not apply to wujud. And adam does not apply to wujud. We're studying wujud. But it's the counterpart of wujud, so we cover it in Umur al Aammah. There are a few things that only cover one of them. And those things usually should not be in Umur al Aammah. They should not be in Kalam metaphysics. But the ulama discuss them because they're related, although they cover only one of the three beings. And those are Al-Qidam and Al-Wujub al-Zati, self-necessity and an eternity. And they do so by way of corollary. So it's like ala sabil al-tabaiyya. So basically, those are the things we cover in Umur al Aammah. And the beings, we have three main subdivisions of beings. We have al-wajib, necessary being. We have substance, al-jawhar, or if you don't like the term, use al-qa'imu bi nafsihi. Anything that can subsist on its own, i.e. wajibun bil-ghayr, but qa'imu bi nafsihi in this natural world. Or the accident, al-arad, qa'imun bi ghayrihi. Now, as we embark on studying general ontology, one might ask, are there any premises we're starting from? What is the subject matter of Umur al Aammah? And what are the premises that we're starting from? So let's go over these premises one by one. First, Kalam metaphysics or philosophy is musa'alatun lil wujud. We're raising questions about existence. We're raising questions about us, about what we see around us, and about God, about the divine. And wujud has three main spheres, or three main circles. We have one circle is al-wujud al-ilahi, divine existence. And we have another circle which is al-alam, i.e. anything beside Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In that big circle, we have another circle called al-insan, man. So li khususiyat man, because this smaller circle, man, has also its own specific features. we usually take it out and we study it on its own. So we have God, the cosmos, and man. Man is part of the cosmos, but لخصوصية ما, we study it on its own. So كلام metaphysics and philosophy before it, it was like مساءلة للوجود بدوائره الثلاث. أو إثارة الأسئلة. We're raising questions. The first question we raise is there something out there? Is there a reality somewhere? So those are premises that actually epistemology take also from ontology, and ontology take from epistemology. So is there a reality out there? Because some sophists say there is no reality. Some of the sophists say there is no reality. There's nothing out there. I doubt anything exists. And I even doubt that I'm doubting. And I doubt my doubt. And I keep doubting. And it goes through an infinite regress. Now, if we accept that there is a reality, we move on to the next question. The next question, هل يمكن الوصول معرفيا إلى هذه الواقعية? Can we have access to this reality? Do we have access to this? Can something be known about this reality? Because the skeptics among the sophists, they believe that there is a reality, but they also believe that we can never have access to it. We can know nothing about the external world. That's number two. Now, if we were to accept that there is a reality and that we can know something about that reality, the next question comes. Is reality reduced to the materialistic world only? Or is it more than we see of the materials? يعني if we were to say that هناك واقعية, هل هي مختزلة في المادية فقط? If we apply, is it reduced only to being matter and matter? Everything is chemical reaction. هذه واقعية مادية محضة. This is a pure materialistic reality. As the materialism and the positivism, whether old or new, subscribe to. So if we were to admit that there is a reality, we may know something about that reality, and it's not reduced to material, to something that is that can be sensed by the five senses. It's broader than materialism. We move on to the next question. Is it broader, as philosophers and mutakallimun and rational human beings have accepted? And those who follow various religions also subscribe to the same principle. They say there is a reality. We can know something about reality, about that reality. It's not materials only. In fact, the material world may be a small subset of that reality. Or we move on to the next one. Or there is a reality, but I make up that reality in my mind. I produce my own reality. I construct my own reality in my mind using my idraki faculties. And this is Kantiya. This is Kant, the school of Kant. There is noumen and there's phenomenon. And we construct our own understanding because we don't have access to the noumen. الفلسفة النقدية, مدرسة Kant. So reality happens to be constructed in our mind, within ourselves. So it's a school that subscribed to the, it's like a phenomenalist, but they do not reject reality. Kant does not reject that there is a reality. He only says, I don't have access to that reality fully. I only see that reality through lenses. So I construct my own reality because he differentiates between noumen and phenomenon. The noumen is al-waqi' al-khariji, or what we call in our terminology al-ma'lumu bil-arad. And the phenomenon ما يظهر لنا في الذهن, or what we call in our terminology al-ma'lumu bil-zat, if you were to read the books of Kalam and philosophy. فكانت يقول الواقع الخارجي لا نصل إليه. Does it not exist? No, no, it exists. He says it exists, but we cannot access it fully. We only see it through lenses. So, and we construct it على مستوى المعلوم بالذات, i.e. within our own head, بملكاتنا, using our own faculties. And then there are people that say there is no reality. No reality. Everything is made up in our mind. And this is ذاتانية محضة. It's pure يعني phenomenalist. مثالية محضة. Idealism. Pure idealism. So what does Taftazani subscribe to? And Iji, and Ibn Sina, and Mullah Sadra, and all those حكماء and متكلمون, and Jurjani, and Dawani, and Tahawi, and all of them. What do they subscribe to? They say هناك واقعية. There is a reality. And this reality is independent of us. Whether we exist or not exist, there is a reality. And this is what we mean by الواقعية الأنطولوجية, the ontological reality. يعني هناك واقعية خارجية مستقلة عن فهمنا, independent of our understanding, independent of our mind, مستقلة عن إدراكاتنا, independent of our perception and of our mental perception. And this reality is governed by a set of rules and a set of principles also independent of our understanding. The question is, can we understand it or not understand it? That's a separate issue. So if we look at the واقعية that we subscribe to four واقعيas, to four realities. The first reality is the ontological reality. And we also subscribe to a second reality, which is واقعية معرفية. i.e. epistemic reality. i.e. there is an epistemic reality, or réalisme épistémique, as they say in French. What does that mean? It means we can access some of that reality. We can know something about that reality. Can we know all aspects of that reality? No, we're not claiming that. Can we know all aspects of that reality which is independent of our mind and independent of our being? Or نحيط ببعض حيثياتها, or we get to know some of the aspects? The author and most authors, all authors that belong to the philosophy that we're dealing with, as well as the kalam scholars that we're dealing with, they all say ندرك بعض حيثيات هذه الواقعية. We can perceive some aspects of that reality. And we perceive it gradually, not all at once. يعني تراكم معرفي. It's cumulative. That's number two. We subscribe to واقعية ontological. We also subscribe to واقعية معرفية. Thirdly, we also subscribe to a third واقعية, which is what we call الواقعية الصدقية. So, واقعية صدقية. So ما ندركه يصدق على ما في الخارج. So there is ما صدق. It applies to what's outside the mind. ما ندركه من هذا الواقع يطابق ما في الذهن. What we perceive of that reality or what we perceive corresponds to the reality outside. When we say زيد قائم, هذه نسبة كلامية تطابق النسبة الخارجية من حيث المصداق. من حيث يعني نحن لا نعيش الأوهام. يعني we're not making things up. We're not hallucinating. ولا الخرافات. And we're not living in superstitions. No, we're living reality through our understanding. And what we understand is only a subset of that reality and some aspects of that reality. And the fourth reality relates to our language. That اللغة التي نستخدمها لغة تحكي الواقع. The language we use is we're expressing what we understood from that reality. And الدلالات الجمل الدلالية ناشئة من الواقع. There is a reality amongst us, around us, and we use language to express that reality. And that language is a reflection of that reality. So واقعية دلالية. There is واقعية دلالية. So réalisme sémantique, semantic reality. So those are the four realities we subscribe to. And as you read the book of Taftazani or Iji or Tusi or Ibn Sina or others, they're all starting from that baseline, that basic principle, that there is a reality. We can know something about that reality. And what we know about it corresponds to that reality by way of misdaq. There is some kind of mutabaqa, misdaqiyya. There's also mutabaqa tahliliyya, but that's a different issue. And there's waqi'iyya dalaliyya. So waqi'iyya related to semantics and semantique. But the author is writing based on these things. Now, after we get to this stage, we divide waqi'iyya, we divide all these waqi'iyya into two categories, into two subcategories. واقعية مطلقة and واقعية مقيدة. So we look at reality qua reality. We look at وجود qua وجود. We look at معلوم qua معلوم. واقعية مطلقة, absolute, without any qualifier attached to it. Or we look at reality with a qualifier. So in Kalam metaphysics, we're only dealing with this reality. الواقعية المطلقة. We do not deal with the واقعية مقيدة. Sorry, let me make. So we don't deal with this, but we deal with this. We deal with واقعية مطلقة. So we study الواقعية المطلقة, absolute واقعية, absolute reality qua reality. As for the واقعية مقيدة, as for the qualified reality, we pass it on to other sciences. And every science study an aspect of that reality. So we first go over واقعية مطلقة, and then we get to a point where we have to make تقييد, where we have to qualify that reality. Once we get to that point, we say this is no longer our job. We pass it on to physics, we pass it on to astronomy, we pass it on to math, we pass it on to engineering, we pass it on to all the sciences. So it's like in usul. In usul, we study the usuli principles. And at certain point in time, we pass it on to the faqih. You deal with the issues. Same thing here. We study reality in the absolute sense, reality qua reality. Once it gets qualified, and we will see how it gets qualified. It gets qualified, and we have to use, before we pass it on to sciences, we have to use the principle of non-contradiction. Once we combine these two together and other principles, we say it's no longer our job, let's pass it on. So sciences are not, physics is not metaphysics. Physics studies the world. But when we study physics, we're going to conclude some principles that are metaphysics. Now, the next question is how to approach the reality. When we study reality, qua reality, or wujud qua wujud, or ma'lum qua ma'lum, or anything, in any science, in any discipline, are we going to study those realities as fragmented realities scattered in the three main spheres that we talked about earlier? So are we going to study each reality on its own? Or are we going to study those realities based on general principles, based on قواعد كلية, based on rules? In our study, we're not interested in studying each reality on its own. Science deals with general rules, general principles. We want to get to the general principles. We want to get to a set of general principles that represent the science we're studying. But in our studies, as we go through Tahdhib al-Kalam, we will see that the author, the ulama, they focus on general principles. And these general principles will take our mind, because when we say نحن نهتم بالعقل, that we honor the aql, we honor reason, and we honor the intellect, we don't mean by intellect my intellect or your intellect. We don't mean al-aql al-juz'i. We mean some kind of aql kulli. Aql kulli that has absorbed principles and is working according to principles and has absorbed the ma'ani inside his mind. So when they think, they're thinking based on principles. They're not thinking based on whims or what I feel or gut feeling or incomplete information or incomplete set of principles. This aql cannot be relied on. If you want to rely on aql, we need aql mi'yari, aql mizani. It's like a scale. It can differentiate things. And because of that, we have to make sure that we can fill our gaps. So we don't have incomplete data And we have to make sure that we know our principles. So we don't have incomplete principles that we apply on incomplete data and we reach incomplete conclusion. So the author like Taftazani or Iji or others, they're very concerned about developing our intellect, developing our thinking. Now we get to a point, well, if that's the case, we need a manhajiyya, we need a methodology. To study metaphysics or philosophy or any science without a methodology is a waste of time. And this manhajiyya is الطريق الموصل إلى المسائل. By applying this methodology, we can get to the desired conclusions. So in epistemology, we go over nazar and etc. And there is a complete methodology in epistemology, in any book of Kalam, that will help you when you read section 5, إلهيات بالمعنى الأخص. And there's also a modified methodology and epistemology that will help you when you get to Nubuwat. So the methodology in Nubuwat is a refined methodology of Ilahiyat. You have to add a couple of different, a couple of new variables or a couple of new principles. Sidi Justin, can you in like 1 or 2 minutes or 3 minutes give us a recap?
Inshallah. So Sheikh Talal has mentioned so far. So when going back to the premises section, so we start off first of all with what is the definition of ontology, metaphysics, or Umur al Aammah. And what we said is that there are general principles that govern all of the ma'lumat or mawjudat. And the reason why we say it's in a general sense, and we say bima'na am, is because it deals with the wajib and the mumkin, whereas in ilahiyat, bima'na khas, then it deals only with the wajib, which is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then afterwards, we speak about the general matters that relate to all existence, and when we translated a section from Sanan Diji. And then we spoke about our starting premises. So we have a few premises that we need to start with, and we're raising questions about reality, knowledge. Is reality broader, or is it constructed? Is materialism, is it only a material world, idealism, etc.? And then we some of the questions we raised were, is there something out there? So that's deals with an epistemological question. And then how do we access this reality? Then after that, we speak about, or we wonder, is the reality reduced down to the materialistic world or not, or is it more broad? And if it is more broad, as the theologians, philosophers, and religious adherents say, how broad is that world? Is the material world just a small subset of that reality? And then we ask, is there a reality, or do we just construct with our minds, like Kant says? Or is there no reality, which is like idealism, only exists in our mind? And then we need to define or determine what the theologians and philosophers ascribe to. What type of reality are they ascribing to? And then we spoke about the 4 realities. So we adhere to, or we assert 4 realities. One is the waqi, there's an independent reality or an ontological reality that's independent of our minds. Then we have a reality that is ma'rifiyya, and that ma'rifiyya is epistemic, meaning that we can know something about that independent reality. And then the third type of reality that we have is siddiqiyya. Siddiqiyya is that what we have in our minds corresponds to something that actually exists. So it's not just happening in our mind. So it actually corresponds to existence that exists within the independent reality. And then finally, we have our dalaliya, or semantic, that when we express things with words, with language, it actually expresses something that exists in reality. And then we mentioned, or Sheikh Talal mentioned, that in Kalam metaphysics, we're dealing with wujud that's mutlaq and not muqayyad. So mutlaq meaning that all of the general matters, and then once we can determine what matters we have to make our the ahkam that we're speaking about more muqayyad, then we give it off to individual sciences. So the example that I've heard Sheikh Talal give before is, for instance, we're speaking about fish in general. Then if we talk about salmon, and then specific things about salmon, then we give it to the biologist to determine. So then finally, Sheikh Talal mentioned, how do we approach this reality? So, and we're trying to look for general principles, and those principles should be that every aql, every intellect, every individual can assert and can ascribe to. So it's not that one has their individual understanding, it's rather an understanding that everyone, every aql can understand. And then finally, we need a manhaj. And that manhaj will get us to the desired conclusions. And then that manhaj also will help us in the fifth section, on ilahiyat bima'na khas, and then finally in the nubuwat section.
All right. I lost track of the time. It's 10 o'clock, huh? Sidi Harun? Let
Yeah.
me see. Hold on a second. So I guess today the next section is wujud. We haven't started reading the book. So I think we can stop here, Sidi Harun. Let me just do a final thing. So yeah, we're gonna talk about methodology and we talk about wujud. We're going to go over the statement by Taftazani. We'll look at both Taftazani and EG. And there are 2 points, Badahat al-Wujud and Ta'rif al-Wujud. We'll look at these 2 points individually. And then we'll do that next week, inshallah. So just to highlight, to end with highlights. We've gone over the structure of the course. We conducted a short activity. We looked at some premises, a brief overview of Umur al Aammah, and we stopped at existence. If there are any comments or observations or objections or corrections, ahlan wa sahlan. Sidi Harun, the floor is yours.
Jazakumullahu khairan. I'd like to actually let folks ask questions, and then I'll just close with a couple comments, if that's okay. Procedural comments, not content comments. So maybe is anyone who would like to ask the Sheikh a question or perhaps some comments?
Yeah, I believe like starting next sessions, where I'd like to make it more interactive, where on every point we ask a series of questions, and it would be great if the participants respond and share their thoughts on this as we navigate Taftazani in conversation with Ibn Sina, in conversation with Mu'tazilis, in conversation with others. I thought this introduction is necessary. I hope I'm not mistaken.
That's extremely helpful. Jazakumullahu khairan. I just want to make sure that there's usually that like 5 to 15 second pause before somebody actually starts speaking. But given the time, I want if there are questions, please do just open your mic and start asking.
I have a question. Can you hear me?
I hear somebody. I can't see who's. Is that Marcelo?
Marcelo, yes.
Okay. Can you just? It's hard to hear, at least on my end. If you can speak into the microphone.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
I mean, Sheikh Talal, can you hear?
I hear a little bit. Please go ahead.
Okay. We have said that there is an external reality and a reality in our own knowledge. But I ask you, how do we really know that there is an external reality? Because all we have is our own knowledge. I mean, even to know the external reality, we have our own knowledge and we rely on our knowledge to know it. How can we say that there is an external reality?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think this question can be a good question for the application session, Sidi Harun. Because just to recap, we want to understand Taftazani as per his own framework, but this question that you raised is an important question. And are there any thoughts from the attendees? What do you think about this question? Now, Marcelo is asking me, but he's actually asking all of us, all of you. Sidi Mustafa, Dr. Mustafa Steyer, are you there? Dr. Jawad, you have an answer or a comment?
Is somebody asking to perhaps repeat the question? CD Justin, would you be able to repeat the question for us?
Yeah, I can try, inshallah. So what I caught from it was that all we have is our knowledge to rely on. So how can we know that there is an external reality that's independent of our knowledge of it? I think that was the also the question, or the essence of it.
نعم. سيدي مصطفى has his mic on. تفضلوا.
السلام عليكم سيدي بعد إذنكم إن شاء الله
عليكم
السلام
السلام.
يكرمكم يا سيدي. Bismillah, this is not a well thought out response, but I think sometimes the way that we formulate these questions, it takes for granted a Cartesianism that everything that we experience, whether it's sensation or feeling or thoughts or ideas or images or imagination, that it's all this sort of mental data. And I think like even phenomenology would say that that's not actually true, that the way that we sense, there is a sensation before we intellect it that comes in. So I think that that if we start this question after a Cartesian idealism, we can never get out of it. And it becomes a trap that we can't get out of. And so what we have to do is question the Cartesianism. And so I think some modern thinkers like phenomenologists would say we can notice that these different types of perception exist, and we can have a proof for that. And we can go further than that and talk about the mode of sensation and say that there has to be a passive aspect. I mean, it's a Kantianism to say that all mental every mental activity is positive, that it's just a generation, and there might be an element of truth to it, but it's highly exaggerated in post-Cartesian contemporary philosophy. Allah alam.
Jazakumullahu khairan. Any comment or follow-up on what Dr. Mustafa Steyer mentioned? In the application session, it would be nice also if one can make a chart of all the waqa'iyat and questions that encompass all the modern philosophies that exist, from realism, idealism, phenomenologists, Kantism, and it can be done. I've done a chart. I hope you can do the same, inshallah. Type CD, I think we've taken so much of their time.
Alhamdulillah, maybe I'll just close with a few just thanks and comments, not about content, just about procedure and so on. Just a reminder that for those who are here with us on Zoom, there's and also some of the folks that are watching the live stream, there's going to be mandatory application sessions or mudhakara sessions that we strongly are encouraging everyone to to join, this is where we'll get to really have a longer sustained discussion of some of these kinds of questions, but also to review the material that was discussed in the Sunday sessions. So you'll be receiving more information about that, inshallah. I also just want to thank everybody that's watching live stream on YouTube right now, and ask everybody's patience, both Zoom and YouTube, as we work out some of the technical details. We're a couple of different institutions, organizations, individuals organizing and putting this together. So I think some of the PDFs may not have reached everybody. Also, there's been some technical differences with Zoom. Some people are receiving certain things and others not. So hopefully within the next day or two, everybody should have access to the PDFs that have been mentioned, the syllabus, and so on. And then also we'll be creating spaces to continue the conversation asynchronously, as well as in mudhakara sessions. And so at whatever level you're participating, please please be in touch and know that you're welcomed and invited, and we'll try to make space for everyone. Again, we had much more interest in the class than we had originally expected. Sheikh Talal had a better, even broader assumption about how many people would be joining than I did. So we're going to do our best for everyone to benefit and feel welcome. So I just ask everyone's forgiveness and patience as we kind of work out the details of a kind of a much bigger project than we'd originally envisioned. So with that, you should be hearing from Basira, from Sheikh Hamza and the Basira team regarding the online asynchronous participation spaces, as well as receiving PDFs for everyone who's registered in their emails, and also details about the mudhakara or application sessions, hopefully on Tuesday. And for those who can't attend that time, we'll also try to coordinate an additional backup time. So Jazakallah khair, Sheikh, and Jazakallah khair. Thank you so much to Sidi Justin for his karamat and summarizing, mashallah. And thanks to everyone else for joining us. And just
Maulana Justin.
no, Maulana Justin. Yeah, Jazakumullah khair. So we'll be in touch, and I'll send out both a follow-up, 2 or 3 question survey to everyone, and also the questions that we had originally assumed everyone would be able to access on Zoom. We'll send those out again. So Jazakumullah khair. Welcome to that.
Jazakumullah khairan. Wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammad. Sidi Harun, can you stay on after
Sure.
the recording?
Just close our